Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation. And finally to the channel, I've got a special guest, Davy from Davy's Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. How are you, Davy?
Very well, Peter. Thank you for having me, and it's great to finally be here. We've sorted the time
Absolutely.
zones out. So,
Yeah, long
yeah.
overdue. We are going to talk about one of the greatest UK albums of all time, I think. And this is the Stone Roses self-titled debut. Came out in 1989. So just a little bit of admin. Stone Roses formed in 1983 in Manchester. The self-titled debut came out in 1989. Stone Roses, the core group, is Ian Brown, John Squire on guitar, Manny on bass, and Rennie or Alan Wren on drums. This album was produced by John Leckie, who was famous for probably the Bends. Radiohead The Bends was probably one of his peak. He also did XTC White Music and magazine Real Life. But along with the Bends, I think this is definitely his crowning achievement. It's just a sparkly, beautifully produced album. So this was a slow burn. So when it was originally released, it didn't set the charts on fire, but it built up over time. And as of now, it's done quadruple platinum in the UK, which is 1.5 million copies sold, which is very tidy indeed. So it's one of those slow burn albums, and it's just considered a masterpiece. So when you think of the bands that have been influenced by this album, you're looking at Primal Scream, you're looking at Blur, you're looking at Chemical Brothers, you're looking at the James, just to name a few. And even in Australia, there are a lot of independent bands that picked up the sunny birds-like harmonies of the Stone Roses and turned it into sort of that indie pop confection. So, Davey, I'm going to throw it to you. What we're going to do is we'll just shoot the shit about our favorite songs and just discuss, and we'll take it from there. So hit me with, a favorite song off this album. We'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to start by having on my. This isn't Adidas, folks. This is Adored. So I want to start by sticking on, because it's the Stone Roses. You need a bucket hat.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm in the summer of 1989.
Oh, bucket hats. It takes me back to Britpop, and we will be going back to Britpop in this. Yes. Yeah, where to start with the Stone Roses? So obviously, they've been going for a few years, as you mentioned. A couple of singles before this, and this was the album. But Sally Cinnamon was a single before this. And then here comes the actual full-length album. And if you mention what track you want to start with, why not start with I Wanna Be a Dog?
Yeah, it's one of the great opening tracks. It's just brilliant. Yeah.
It might well be one of the greatest mission statement opening tracks of any band's career, I think.
Yes. It's a statement of intent, isn't it? It's just an outstanding opener.
It's that collage sound. It's got Manny's insanely cool bass part, which is just hypnotic. And that's what the whole track is, really, because Ian's lyrics, I mean, there only are one small part of lyrics, the I don't need to sell my soul, he's already in me, I want to be a dog.
Yeah.
That's it, just ad nauseum. But it never sounds repetitive because he finds ways to phrase it. John Squire finds ways to play little parts, slow it down, speed it up. And again, it's got the pulsating rhythm section of Manny and Rennie just propelling everything along. Again, it makes it seem as though, just under 5 minutes, I think. You'd think that one small lyrical section and not terribly much different musically would meander. It never does.
Never boring.
Just hypnotic trance. not trance, but it is trance-like, and it's just a sensational album. And even those lyrics, you know, I mean, just calling the track itself, "I Want to Be Adored," and having that as the chorus as would be, it kind of sells you on everything. It sells you on the hubris and the arrogance of Ian Brown in particular.
Yes.
But unlike probably the most influenced band of from the Stone Roses, Oasis, the arrogance always sounds like it's got an underpinning of self-doubt, because he's got that fluttery high voice, Ian Brown.
And he used to sing very softly.
Yeah, and double track it, and
triple track, quadruple track. But I've read articles with interviews with John Leckie, and apparently he was a very soft singer. They have to put the microphone up close to get him to actually project his voice.
Yeah, and that to me, that's part of the charm, is that he a lot of this album is hubristic and on paper should be arrogant, but his own demeanor betrays that kind of, you know, it's a front, and he's a hopeless romantic, which is in quite a lot of these tracks as well, sometimes alongside the hubris and the arrogance. But yeah, I mean, to me, a bunch of guys from the north of England in the 80s, gosh, they probably had to come out with something big and heavy just to say this is who we are and this is our mission statement, because everything was so London focused at the time, and you know, there was such a great scene going on in Manchester as was, that to kind of say, no, we need to take this sound and make this the British sound, which would take a few years once their influence was really felt, which you say was a slow burn, because it's almost like everybody that loved this album was 17, 18 or whatever. And then by the time they were 23, 24, that's when the charts really showed just how influential this was.
Yep.
And Britpop. It's really that's their biggest achievement, is their influence. But sometimes that means that the album itself isn't, oh, well, I can see why it's seminal, but it's not actually that great a listen. This is that great a listen anyway.
Oh, it's a masterpiece. In respect to that track, I love the slow build-up. So I was listening really. It's, by the way, folks, it is a great headphone listen, this album, because you pick up different things that you don't hear if you don't have the headphones. And the start of this song has got a very slow build-up. It's got these like tribal drums, and the drums in the distance. Then comes in the bass line. Then you've got the strum guitar chords, and you've got this beautiful cascading guitar. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
John Squire, he's a guitar hero. I mean, I saw him live in 2016. They played the Opera House, and he's a bona fide guitar hero. You know, he was just he was, you know, had the Les Paul, and he's up there with any top-notch guitarist I've seen live. He rocks. He's
John
up there. Beautiful tone.
Yeah. To me, it's quite similar to, say, a band like the Smiths almost, where you've got your front man who's got his ideology and is going to set the tone for the kind of themes and content. But sonically, your guitar player is really, really tasty and can, like Johnny Marr, take it in a million different directions, but always know when to be restrained at the same time. Neither one of them.
And he can play with groove. He knows when to funk it out and play, put out the wah-wah. I think that's an outstanding song. Another thing about this album is there's a lot of references biblical. Structured along the life of Christ. So you've got I Want to Be Adored, which is like the birth of Christ. There's been some analogies with that. And then it goes through to I Am the Resurrection. like the death of Christ. So there's this biblical lyricism that's through the album, which is quite strange. There's another thing that's prevalent is the drug culture, because we can't deny Manchester, basically dance culture, Manchester electronica was very much the E culture, and that was it was everywhere in that era. And there's just total psychedelia, and that would affects a lot of the approach, the singing, the projection, the lyrics, and it's all the way through this album. But great opener. That is a great opener. What about the next one? Do you want to talk about She Bangs the Drums? That's probably another popular, well-known song off that one.
Yeah, I mean, talk about insanely cool bass intros. I mean, that's 2 tracks in a row where Manny's come in with he's the first part that you really hear from the guys. It's a more traditional single sounding track, but still very Manchester. Again, that great jangly guitar. I mean, you mentioned it there. To take that kind of 60s Rickenbacker sound of like Roger McGuinn and that kind of thing, and add it to dance culture, just sounds, and that shouldn't work.
It's insane.
What's this? But it works perfectly. It does. And I don't think there's a chemical reason why it does, apart from the actual chemicals themselves. But everything about it just fits perfectly. I mean, it's their influences, but they're not doing too much with them to alter them, apart from taking into account different rhythms that can kind of go along with them that you would never have had in the 60s. And that's down to Manny and Rennie. Like Rennie on the drums and She Bangs the Drums is just absolutely, he propels it perfectly.
I've got a image in my head with this song of Steve McQueen on a motorbike and Jacqueline Bisset holding on to him, driving down 1967 San Francisco. I've got this. It's kind of like it's cool. It's a really uber cool song. And it's in the delivery of Ian Brown. It's just a sweet melody confection, and the triple tracking of the vocal harmonies. Brown's had a lot of criticism that he can't sing live. And to be quite frank, when I saw him in 2016, the first 3 songs, he was off pitch, and I'm going, ooh. And then it started to get better, and it was just a celebration. And a lot of people say that because he is a soft singer, he can't hear himself sing live. But he cops a lot of flack live that he can't, because he's off key. But in the studio, the producer said he sang perfectly. And, he's not the world's greatest singer. He's not a, classically, perfect singer. But for this band, he is perfect. He's part of the puzzle, and he fits like a glove.
And it would influence even vocalists who perhaps would never have put themselves forward as vocalists, like Ian Brody from the Lightning Seeds, even, that kind of slightly higher voice, on paper a weak voice, but again, he's compensating with these massive lyrics, these insanely anthemic lyrics, where this guy's voice is playing Wembley Stadium to 90,000 people. It's nuts.
Similar to Tim Burgess from Charlatans. I recently did great debuts, and I put up some friendly, and I basically pitched that his voice is behind the guitars in the mix. It's kind of wispy, and he's copped a bit of flack, but for the band, he's perfect. So there must be something about the Manchester where the vocals are sort of brought back a notch.
You mentioned James Tim Booth as well.
Yep.
Very similar. I think he's got a slightly stronger voice, but slightly more front voice, but not much. So there really is something to it, but it's such an insanely catchy track. That I think it's just it's rocking, it's catchy, but it's also pretty and romantic. And that's something that when people just hear the words, especially in the UK, I think nowadays, if they hear just Manchester and drug culture and these kind of things, they probably are thinking more of the single, like Fool's Gold, or they're thinking more of the Happy Mondays,
Yes.
than they are this kind of music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, just I don't put any kind of culture down. You know, it's part of the time, it's part of the place. But if people are repelled by the idea of this being part of drug culture and dance culture and whatnot, put that aside and just listen to it as a 60s influenced, psychedelia influenced record, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it on that level anyway.
Absolutely. What's the next one you'd like to talk about? You got a
Yeah, I mean, I think probably. I mean, we could just literally do the whole bloody record. I mean,
all right, let's keep going. Go to Let's go Waterfall. Go Waterfall.
Well, I think let's knock those off on a twofer, because Waterfall and then Don't Stop. Waterfall, some of Squire's best guitar parts ever. Just such a tasteful player, again, who could overshadow, but here just adds this wonderful texture. But there is that great instrumental breakdown in the outro where it just sounds like it's, you know, he's got another minute to play with. And we'll see that on track you mentioned, I Am the Resurrection, where there's a few minutes left. John, do you want to do something?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do an outro and get out the wah-wah pedal. Wow. Yeah.
But then don't stop to take that track. And yeah, people say, oh, psychedelia, they're just playing a track backwards. They're playing the song you've just heard backwards. So it's Waterfall backwards. So you've just heard it. It's fantastically playful, but totally different from Waterfall.
Absolutely.
The amount of people I've spoken to who don't realise that it's the song they've just listened to played backwards. They just think it's some backwards playing. No, it's the song you've literally just listened to for 4 minutes, now 5 minutes stretched out, and played backwards, but with a totally different vibe and a totally different feel. So it's that kind of playful twist on a psychedelic idea of, oh, let's play it backwards. No, let's play the exact same track again backwards.
No, I think that's just so smart. And a album that has been referenced a little bit, that was in the frame when they were making this, was the Beatles Revolver.
Yeah.
So Taxman was referenced, but definitely a lot of the interesting instrumentation and effects of the Revolver album were bandied during the making of this album. And that's what I was referencing in my comments about Waterfall and Don't Stop, that late period Beatles, the psychedelia and the reverse. No, that's great. Bye Bye Badman. That's an interesting one. What do you think of that one?
I think it's a really cool one. It references the Paris '68 riots with Choke Me and Smoke in the Air, and that's where you get this is the cover we should mention. The classic cover is by John Squire, and this is called Bye Bye Badman when he painted it essentially without the band logo. So when you've got the citrus cover, so people think this is referencing the UK flag, perhaps. It's the French flag because it's a bit, so that was his inspiration. And then you get your citrus slices there. Citrus sucking sunshine, which if I haven't actually, I don't think I did. I did say about my bucket hat, but I also have my citrus T-shirt as well. So,
wonderful. So just to tell
but it's a great track.
It is. Just to tell the viewers, so there was a Parisian student protest in 1968, and what the protesters were doing is they would suck on a lemon, and that would alleviate the symptoms of the smoke bombs. So, and one of the lyrics is, choke me, smoke the air, in this citrus-sucking sunshine, I don't care. So the students carried the lemons to sort of mitigate it. But it's a very political song. It's got a whimsical acoustic guitar line that interweaves. And I love it when Ian Brown's singing gets stripped back and
Yes.
you know, it plainly in the studio environment, he can hold a tune.
Yeah.
I've got to put a kudo for the Pollack painting. You know, it's like
John Squire's painting is brilliant. Yeah, absolutely love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Just a classic cover.
I've got to reference something that we had a prime minister in the 70s, Gough Whitlam, and he bought the blue poles from Pollack for $10 million. And all the people said, what a waste of taxpayers' money. This is just rubbish art. It's horrible, blah, blah, blah. Wow, what a canny investment, because that $10 million painting, which is sitting in Canberra, is now worth $600 or $700 million. So there you go. I was just thinking about that. That's when I saw that, you know.
Watch out, Scott Morrison might have nicked it while we're not looking.
He's gone, don't worry.
Yeah, he's the Minister for Art. Nobody realises it, but he's appointed himself the Minister for Art.
Yeah. But I love that song.
That'll day. But isn't it fascinating? You mentioned the student riots. Now, I should have put that in context there. The chalk and smoke. Yeah, but the student riots of '68. But you would read that the choke me, smoke the air in the citrus sucking sunshine, and you could actually just think out of context, yeah, that does sound like quite drug culture, psychedelic stuff anyway, even if you had no context of the student riots.
Yeah, but there is, a lot of people have said you can read a lot of these lyrics and flip it over into the drug culture. Yes. But I prefer to look at it more literally and in that sort of sense. But that's a great track.
I think to tie them too tightly into drug culture is to do them, I don't want to say a disservice, because they were a part of it, but to tie them intrinsically to it, I think no, that was the domain of the Happy Mondays and the like. So that was much more. There was no Bez, dancing in front of the stage, or
maracas, doing that sort of thing. Elizabeth, my dear. So that's straight into Simon and Garfunkel territory, the parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. So that's a nice little, but it uses the traditional lyrics, I assume. Viewers, correct me if I'm wrong. But that's a nice little palate cleanser, in the album.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is new lyrics. It's a takedown of the Queen. So it's very much an anti-monarchist, and we're going to get some anti- Houses of Parliament stuff as well. It's great. That's why I'm saying they shouldn't be tied too much towards one aspect, because they were sharp. Ian had his finger on the pulse of political songwriting as well, in a different way, not overt.
And he wasn't a media darling, because he did no media. They were very adverse to doing any media, and that really used to piss the press, the Fleet Street press, no end, because they couldn't get any sound grabs. And when they did do interviews, it would be grunts or just total sort of arrogance, just a couple of lines here and there. So,
which again was oftentimes aloofness is mistaken for arrogance. But really, you look back at who they were being interviewed by, and it was BBC stuffed shirts who had no interests, no knowledge of them. Of course, they weren't going to give them anything, and they weren't interested in playing the game. And that again, that follows on to again a more cartoonish version with Oasis and the like, where that would almost be part of their shtick, would be to fight a paparazzi photographer, or, start an argument in a press conference. Or,
Feign rock and roll, bad behaviour sort of thing.
But it was natural here, and you're right. Ian would think what their first TV appearance, the sound was a bit dodgy after a minute, and he just walked off.
Didn't he say amateur hour? There was something
on the Late Show, and he just walked right off. I mean, their big break on national television, and Ian just walks off. I mean, that sums up. But 25 years later, they're still playing to 90,000 people in the UK.
Yes, they are. Yes, when I was in the
Nice.
UK, I was in a record store, just in Soho, and I like listening to conversations. And somebody was talking to the guy behind the counter. He goes, "Oh, saw Stone Roses last night. They've still got it," and it was just the joy on their faces. That
Yeah.
this band has brought so much joy to so many
Yeah.
people, even 20 years later, and that was the talk of the town. That was their final gig, I think.
Their last gig was up here because I was at it.
Oh, okay. Well, in London, the second or
Yeah,
third last, or
yeah.
whatever it was. Yeah.
It was Hampden Park in Glasgow, and that was the one where Ian announced on stage it was the last gig. And I don't think he'd consulted the rest of the band that it was going to be announced publicly at that point.
So it was like David Bowie and the Spiders and Mars. This is our last gig, and you look.
Yeah. So even if it had been said behind closed doors, which I'm not even sure that was the case, he just announced, "This is it, guys, so you better enjoy it because you've only got 3 tracks left and you'll never see us together again." Because I saw them in 2013 in Glasgow Green, thinking that was it. And then 4 years later, so that was 30,000 people. And then 4 years later in 2017 at Hampden Park, and that was 50,000 people. So, we are really talking about Springsteen, McCartney, the Rolling Stones. We're talking about this level in the UK for anybody who doesn't understand just how massive the Stone Roses
Absolutely.
were.
This is beyond O2, guys. So O2 is about 15 to 20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've been in that venue. This is 50,000. This is soccer stadiums.
Yeah.
This is big. Probably a notch below Queen, maybe.
Yeah. Although I think they played Manchester for 3 nights and sold, I think, 130,000 tickets for those 3 nights. And they were all sellouts, so they probably could have done 4 or 5 nights, no problem.
Keep it going.
And people would probably bought tickets for a month residency, the same people. But because it's the Stone Roses, and you never quite know what you're going to get from them live, as you alluded to.
I like that. You want danger. You want to see danger, edge. You want unpredictability. You don't want to see the same show where it goes A to Z and it's all the lights and that's unpredictability. That's what we want. Danger. Next song. This is an interesting one lyrically. Song for My Sugar Spun Sister. What's your take on this song?
It's a broken record. Asking my take on this because I love it. I love every track on this record. It really is a masterpiece. But I think we can go into at the end. Is it just how much of a masterpiece? Because I think we can go into that then. This is where we're saying they land another punch. Where we've got the lines about every member of Parliament trips on glue. Which again, we're in the middle of Thatcher's. Well, we're towards the end of Thatcher's regime, but these guys have come up right through the Thatcher government. But it's also a very romantic song that's can be quite explicit if you read it in a certain way as well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's in love with the girl selling the candy floss at the fair.
Yeah.
She hates her job, but he keeps on going back to her to get her attention. I find this a really enigmatic, mysterious song, but at the same time, it's whimsical, and it's just got that wonderful jangly sound, and you've got the double, triple checking of Ian Brown.
Yeah,
and I just love these the tracking of the harmonies. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's insane, and you're right. You've got this. Any other band would have this song, right? Okay, girl, candy floss, fair. Okay, I know what I'm doing here. Romance and blah, blah. Yeah. Nobody else would think to add in a part about every member of Parliament song glue. Nobody else would think to do that.
Yeah, it's abstract.
Yes, it's abstract, but it somehow works. And again, it ties into the culture of the time.
Absolutely.
It ties into Ian's psyche. It adds to their oh God, I don't want to call them stream of consciousness like lyrics, because I think this is actually a really sharply written album, as we saw with I Want to Be Adored. They can be as concise as hell. But I think intentionally he's ambiguous. Intentionally, sometimes he'll go off on a tangent without explanation. And a part about like the sniff and glue for the politicians, it almost feels like maybe he said that to the girl. Maybe that's what he just, that was how they awkwardly started the conversation.
Yeah.
But it's just such. We can almost just we can copy and paste certain parts of all of these and just say it's got some great jangling guitars.
Yeah,
it's got a
absolutely
rhythm section. It's got a wonderful take on a modern take, and it still sounds contemporary to these years.
Absolutely, it has not aged one iota. This one, likewise, the next song, "Made of Stone." Again, you've got another mysterious, enigmatic type song, and it's about the death of Jackson Pollock. The car crash and the subsequent death, and there we go. We go back to the Jackson Pollock painting. But again, this song's got a lot of urgency to it. Beautiful harmonies, birds. I keep on referencing the birds. Because it's all over it. Yeah. And this was the second single off the album too.
And it's my favorite Stone Roses song. It's my absolute favorite. But you're saying something, because gosh, you could,
there's so many.
Put it on a dartboard and just throw a dart, and you could pretty much hit your favorite. But to be honest, this is my favorite. To me, it's there is a light that never goes out. Literally, there's a car crash in it, so it makes sense, I suppose. But it's got a very bleak feel to it, with a really melancholic feel. But still, that chorus is soaring. Sometimes I fantasize when the streets are cold and lonely, and the cars burn below me. Don't these streets fill your eyes? Are you all alone? Is anybody home? It's dreamy. It's romantic in a totally different way, as in the classical sense. It's romantic in a dark, melancholic, beautifully depressed way almost, where this music doesn't quite match the idea of Jackson Pollock in a car crash, but it somehow does. And it's also got I've referenced him a few times doing great bass parts, but I think it's my favorite Manny bass part of all time. I think it's
his bass part is his bass playing through the album is so fluid, and there are a couple of songs where I was just listening to the bass, because I love bass. And I get attracted to the bass more than guitar sometimes, and his bass lines are just sublime all the way through. And the next song that I wanted to talk about is a bit of a jazzy one, "Shoot You Down." And this is where Remy's bass, or Manny's bass, I should say, Rennie's on drums. It's really jazzy. It's great. You've got these jazz influenced lines, and John's playing a blues riff. And it could be on another record than album closer. I think it's got that kind of feel to it. It does sound like it could close a record. It's real goosebump kind of track to me. That it makes your hair on your arms stand on end. It's one of the ones that when they nail that live, just sensational. And the quiet bits where you just hear Ian's voice. I love that bit where it just goes to him and he's completely naked, and the song goes to, it's just focused on his voice. It's just magnificent. But it's a change of pace. This is a different song in the context of the album, but it just shows that they've got game, and they are so, they can go into the jazz and the funk, and they can do, they're not just narrow, jangly pop. They can, their musical palette is wide. And it's much like this album cover. It's everything. It's everything, and it's zesty at the same time to go with the citrus feel. And you're right, it's got that cool jazz approach with
really kind of crafty and tasty guitar parts. Again, John Squire's so underrated in the wider sense. The UK is not, but in the wider sense, I think John Squire's massively underrated. It's got a terrific rhythm section again, and that a cappella section. If they thought that Ian had a weaker voice, they certainly showed plenty of confidence in him here, because they've got an a cappella section to show his talent on Shut You Down, and it's fantastic.
And this is before auto-tune. I know there's going to be some people on YouTube, they've had auto-tune for ages, blah, blah, blah. But no, really, I've read a lot of testimonies, and they said that he was really good in the studio, and you just got to take it at face value. And even though I have seen, like live, he's been pitchy, but then he moves in, and he sounds like he does on the record. Yeah. So I guess you just believe what you want to believe. Now we're getting in to the finale, and those last two songs, Davey, shiver up your spine material. This is the one. I'm getting a shiver up my spine right now. I'm just thinking of it. Yeah. This tugs at the heartstrings. I'd like to leave the country for a month of Sundays, burn the town where I was born. My God.
Yeah.
It's Springsteen lyrics.
Yeah. And again,
it's cinematic.
When you put it in the context of it's grim up north, 1980s Britain, where they've been completely abandoned by the Tory government, you can kind of see what kind of lyrics they're really going for there. It's again, this could be an album closer too.
This could be, but I wrote down defiant, quiet, calm, and then it becomes euphoric and almost bombastic in a good way.
Yeah.
So, but when he says this is the one, it's that quiet but defiance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a bit like, sorry, Peter, beg your pardon.
Yeah. No, go.
A bit like I Want to Be Adored. You will hear the phrase "this is the one" over and over ad nauseum, but you never get bored of it. You never get bored of it once.
Well, there's going to be a catchphrase. That's the one. Again, biblical reference. John the Baptist referencing Jesus is the Messiah, and he is the one. So that's part of it. And then we go to the Granddaddy. Probably my favorite track, along with the opener. I Am the Resurrection, and live. It's to die for. This is what they close their set. Well, they played it in Sydney. They closed the set, and it is a piece de resistance. It is brilliant. You got a 4-minute outro where John Squire's just jamming it up, getting out all the effects pedals. I wrote down, this is their masterpiece. It's epic. It's got groove to spare. And it's the band firing on all cylinders. Sorry, I'm just talking cliches, but I've got nothing more to give. It's brilliant.
It kind of feels like there's a reason why cliches exist, and it's because some things are just that good in the first place, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
I Am the Resurrection again. It's got the Christ allegories, but it's also got Ian Brown's own
philosophy.
Yeah.
A little bit of the burn in there, a little bit of Ian Brown, bit of a sting.
But you're right, it's 8 minutes and 20 seconds, something like that. But really, it's a 4-minute song with 4 minutes of John, take us home. And John, if John has been tasty and understated throughout a lot of the records, and I shouldn't undersell that, he has been riffing it up a lot of the time as well. But this is where John just gets to do exactly what he wants. And it's heavy, it's crunching, it's psychedelic, it's acoustic. I think there's quite a few tracks added on top of it, but it's all John just creating this amazing 4-minute outro collage of music, which again goes right back to I Want to Be Adored, where it starts with a sound collage, as you said. So we end with the sound collage as well, which isn't to skip over the first 4 minutes, which are remarkable on their own. that I Am the Resurrection, it's it makes one person the object of scorn almost, and it's probably one of the great indie rock tracks and melodic upswings of all time.
Yeah. I think it's truly great. And just to quote the lyrics, "I am the resurrection and I am the life," which comes from the Bible virtually. Yeah. "I couldn't ever bring myself to hate you as I'd like." So
it's an angry song, but
what a closer. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And it basically distills everything we love about the Stone Roses in those 8 minutes. It's got everything.
Yeah.
So
it's insane. It's just my goodness. I mean, it's a perfectly sequenced record, but I'm also quite convinced that regardless of how you sequence this, it would still be a masterpiece. Although I don't think you can top "I Want to Be Adored" as your intro and then "Resurrection" as the outro. But by goodness, I honestly don't. I think you could hit this on shuffle and still come out as a masterpiece of an album.
Absolutely, and I think masterpiece gets overused a fair bit, just in the YouTube world or in any way. But believe me, this is a great album, and it is probably a masterpiece. It is one of the great albums. Now, I've got to include another track, "Fool's Gold."
Fool's Gold.
So you've got this. So this was on the B side, but "Fool's Gold," and that track is got some of the grooviest, shim-worthy bass line that committed to vinyl ever. Yeah, it's just, you hear it and you just want to groove. Yeah. And that was the dance song of 1989, 1990. I used to go to a few Manchester nights here and there, or a few clubs, and that song was just got everyone on the dance floor. They would love it. And it goes on and on and on, but it's got that groove. It's infectious. And the band are really just going for it. And that was probably the highest charting song in this neck of the woods in regards to Stone Roses. I think it went top 20, top 30.
It's certainly their most ubiquitous single, even to this day, because and even doesn't it even go back to the 60s idea of their biggest single wasn't an album track. That's a very old-fashioned idea, even in 1989. To have the standalone single that isn't on the album, although it is subsequently on releases. I mean, this is the 3-disc version with the demos and then the DVD of the Blackpool concert from '89, which can get dirt cheap. It's insane, from Silvertone. And "Fool's Gold" closes the CD, but I don't think it works as a closer. No,
it doesn't. I don't know where you'd put it in the album, but I wanted to talk about it because I just bloody well liked the song. Yeah,
I think we have to talk about it because it's it's a massive part of them, and it's a massive part of the scene. As you said. It's probably the funkiest thing that they've done. It's probably the most obviously Manchester thing that they did. It really showcases Manny and Rennie. But it's like James Brown grew up in Salford or something, It's
absolutely, and it's got that very stock standard drum pattern that was prevalent in electronica, trance music, dance music in the late 80s, 90s. There was a particular drum pattern with the hi-hat that you could hear in Copycat. Anyway, they use that really stock standard drum pattern, but the way that they just attach that bass line and riff, it just makes it magic.
Yeah. And there's a famous Top of the Pops where they do "Fool's Gold" on the same episode as the Happy Mondays do "Hallelujah." And that was very much seen as, the mad will inherit the earth, to go with their biblical themes of the day. It was very much seen as Manchester has arrived.
Absolutely.
Bands like the Smiths and whatnot, they come from Manchester, but they didn't feel particularly. Well, no, I can't say that. Morrissey did have a lot of Northern-inspired lyrics, but they weren't representing as much, and culturally they weren't saying, no, I'm not part of the London, literati, whereas the Stone Roses, the Happy Mondays, they were all about saying, no, we're nothing to do with London. We're not interested in stick your London, we're Manchester.
Yeah, absolutely.
Created a whole scene that went on. And then that scene created, again, Britpop in general, really. I mean,
it did.
The 90s, all to 1989 in the UK. I think I mentioned to you when we were first kind of mooting topics to go over that there were whole months in the UK where the album charts and the singles charts, there wouldn't be one non-UK artist in them in the top 10. Because it was just such a seminal time for homegrown talent coming through.
I think it was just so it was a rich time for British music. I love it. I love the Britpop, but I love that Manchester scene. And I would encourage our viewers, especially those parts of the world like America that may not be familiar with the Stone Roses. If you're not convinced on the basis of our conversation, just do yourself a favor and get on YouTube and listen to some of these songs and tell us what you think. It's just put on the headphones and listen, and I guarantee I think some of you guys would be sold. So, Davey, thank you. It was worth the wait to get you on the channel finally.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this, and we have to do this again. We will cover some other UK Britpop because it is a absolute goldmine.
Yep.
So please check out Davy's channel. It's wonderful. He just covers stuff with cinema, records. He did a fantastic show on Neil Young, which has done really well for you. And check it out. And please, subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation and like it and put some comments and tell us what you think of the Stone Roses, because it's a band that we both like and means a lot to us. All right. Catch you soon.
Yeah.